Welcome everybody to the Gecko Pod. This is episode 56, AJ.
56.
56. This is a special episode where we have morph chats, where we talk about genetics of a specific type of animal. And today we're talking about empty backs. Empty backs, like the Phantom
And
episode.
super
Empty
stripes.
back super stripes. Yeah,
Yes.
like kind of like the Phantom episode. It's kind of confusing. It can be confusing. And so we're here to learn from AJ, who works a lot with empty backs, and Anthony and Jess, who've been working with empty backs for quite a while now, right? And so, yeah, let's jump in. What do you guys think? What are we talking about today, AJ? What's the format?
Yeah. So I think first off, I'll ask Anthony and Jess to define empty back as a trait of kind of overview of what it's doing, and then inheritance of how it is being passed from one animal to another.
Gotcha. Let's see. Definitely its inheritance is going to be incomplete dominant. Let's see. How is it defined? It's an interesting one. It's definitely something that's interrupting pattern in the center of the dorsum. So the heterozygous form will disrupt the pattern, creating less visible patches of patterning color, whether it's orange pattern or white pattern. And then it also has a few markers in between. For example, the hets sometimes have this like V shape around the neck. A lot of them actually do quite a bit. There's also tail markers in them. So that's the het form. And then the homozygous form has almost a nearly completely emptied out central dorsum. And you'll also notice that the lateral patterning is affected too. The animals are usually a bit darker.
Yeah, I've seen that for sure as well, where the lateral markings are reduced. The amount of pattern on the side of the animal is reduced as well. So
yeah, even if you push it in, it still reduces it quite a bit.
Yeah. So I think something that confuses a lot of folks, and we'll get into super stripe as well in a little bit here, but I think something that I hear a lot is, why is something a het empty back versus a super empty back? And I think language would be, it's kind of an interesting thing, because if you call something an empty back, say it's the heterozygous form, one copy, you call it an empty back, somebody's going to look at it and say, that's not an empty back. It doesn't look empty at all.
Right.
You know, it's kind of an unfortunate name, where when the super should be called empty back, and the heterozygous should be something else entirely.
Yeah.
Patchy back. And
I find most crested gecko morphs to be unfortunate namings of the morphs. This is kind of where like
super Dalmatian.
Exactly. Like this is kind of like where, if you think about it, you look at other species, it made more sense to have like radical names for some things, where like if you look at ball pythons, right, they have like highways, and they have bananas, and they kind of hint at what the morph would be, but it's not like the gecko or the snake looks like a banana, right? Where crested gecko morphs are significantly more literal. Like the pink morph is pink, right?
Yeah. Or like in ball pythons, there's like Mojave, but then there's also the super form. The super form is a leucistic, right?
Yep.
It's a leucistic snake. So yeah, that's more helpful. But I think in regards to this, the way the current language is often said is that something is a heterozygous, so a het empty back, which we'll see some here in a little bit, and then a homozygous empty back, or some folks say super empty back.
Right.
So that's the current language. So what we're talking about is one copy of the gene versus two copies of the gene, and we'll see that here in a little bit, examples of what that plays out to be. Okay. So I wanted to ask you guys a little bit of a history lesson. I know we've touched on this kind of briefly in other episodes, but if you could kind of walk us down a little bit of memory lane on the early days of empty back, the first animals you saw from Alan, and kind of what that evolved into over time. And we'll pull up your website here.
Go for it, Jess.
So originally we saw our first empty back in about 2009 in Alan's Repashy. It was like diet. Was it
it
T-Rex
between-
diet or Repashy diet?
It was on his website.
So
Between
this was like
that animal 07, 08. That
Uh,
picture, I believe it was taken 07 by Andrew Gilpin on a Canon.
oh wow.
Yeah, so we asked Alan for it. Like, we have to have this.
You're like, I want this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said no.
Yeah.
But
basically.
we can get you something similar. So that's actually where we got our AFI from
Mhm.
back in 2009-ish.
Yeah.
Did that animal prove to be empty back?
Yeah. So
It
it's
took a while.
interesting. Yeah, it took a while, but yeah, because we grew him up and stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like for me, when I first saw it, like my excitement went through the roof. I was like, holy Toledo, this has got to be a gene. It's not like any pinstripe or anything that I've bred. I mean, it's very similar to pinstripe, obviously, because it's got striping, but just how it's interacting with the pattern was my number one thing. The big, giant, large head patterning gone, just totally wiped out in so many of these animals, right? So, another place I ended up starting to look for was called Anthony, and I was looking for other ones just like it. So I showed him pictures and like, shared my idea with them and stuff like that as well. So that took several years before I got some animals from him as well.
Yeah.
But hets actually ended up proving out in our collection. So
yeah.
That's super cool.
So for the naming, what should we call it? Like super pinstripe?
Don't tell anybody.
Okay, so
I don't want anything to catch
Super
on.
pinstripe.
It's so embarrassing.
But then it became the naming of it was the literal description of it. We're like, well, the back is empty. So we're looking at empty back pinstripes.
It is really funny how literal we are with our morph naming in Crested Geckos.
But also, too, you want it to be super obvious. So when you're asking another breeder for something, they're going to be like, what the heck are you talking about? And then you say, hey, do you have an empty back? And then you explain what it is. They're like, oh, okay, now I know kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
people,
even writing the description,
people don't even say that. They just say EB now. They're like, hey, do you have an EB?
Yeah, who named the empty
when
back?
we were saying EB, we weren't even saying het EB or EB, super EB. It was literally EB or not EB.
Super is definitely new because I wasn't even using it because I didn't want to interject too much into the community and like create all this too much huzzbuzz, around it. So I was just like, empty back is a gene. Here's a het. Here's a homozygous kind of thing.
So it's empty back or not empty back.
Who was the first person to coin it?
The empty back term?
Yeah, like publicly.
I have no clue.
Because I know you said you talked with AC about it. Did AC name it after you talked, or what was the history on it? Blurry?
Brian Butler also mentioned he named something too, right?
Oh yeah.
So we're not sure, basically.
I just know what we were calling it in 0809.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Alan named it or who actually named it.
I don't think Butler had him in 0809. So
right. So
what year was AC calling him empty back?
Dude, I don't know.
It must be around the same time because that's when we were all kind of looking through our collections for them because we're like, this has to be.
Does he cite a year on his site?
I don't think so.
Because because he originally had air quotes super stripes. I feel like he marketed super stripes much earlier than he marketed empty backs.
Super stripe for sure. I remember that being marketed as well, and I never really looked into them too much like I did empty back.
It's when our hets
proved out.
And then
once our hets proved out with super stripe and then empty backs and stuff like that, and we were getting that really weird phenotype ratio, and I was just like, these things are sorting into like very particular columns of phenotype descriptions, and they weren't swaying nicely between each other like as a progression. If you breed patterning on patterning and you slowly progress kind of over time.
And then our super stripes popped out while we're trying to chase this empty back thing. And then I think by then Hannah already had super stripes.
Oh yeah, Hannah had them for a while.
She had them for
hers are killer. Yeah, we now have some animals from her as well.
But
what's the relationship?
I think Eslin
was
working with.
What's the relationship between the super stripe and empty back?
This is a big subject.
Yeah, it is a good
But
subject.
one of the
AJ,
questions
you
is,
describe it really well.
what's that?
So I remember, and I'll tell everyone this. So when I first read the Foundation Genetics Guide in the book, the articles, I'm like a skeptic by nature. So I'm always the kind of person where it's like, I'll read it and I'll take in the information, but I want to prove things for myself.
Mhm.
So a lot of the traits that are described in the guide, I wanted to prove that myself. So I wanted to do it with Phantom. I wanted to do it with Red. I wanted to do it with Empty Back, with Super Stripe, all these different things. So the way I describe it and the way that I think, is this now officially like the description on the guide, Anthony? The whole
I
epistatic
have
combination?
so I do actually have a version 2 of the guide where I've redone sections.
But
Empty back's one of them that I've cleaned up a bit.
okay. So is this
Hypo,
updated on
soft
here?
scale, things like that. Tangerine, especially.
Okay. I'll just give the example. So I remember we talked like a year and change ago about this, Anthony. I think it was at Tinley or something. And you basically pitched this idea to me where you said, and this is my layman's terms explaining it. So all super stripes are empty backs, but not all empty backs are super stripes.
Mm.
And that's the
Yeah.
way that I kind of wrap around it in my mind. And the way that I got there logically through breeding is I had animals that were known to have come from super stripes, but were not super stripes themselves, but were super empty backs.
Yep.
And I bred those animals together and I got a spread of offspring that matched the hypothesis that there is a second trait in play. So both those animals being 100% hets, but also homozygous for empty back, 2-copy gene for empty back. The ratios played out where I got a spread of super empties and super stripes.
Heck yeah.
And then
That's what I
super
love hearing.
empty het super stripes. So I got a spread from that. And then I bred other pairs that had no known super stripes, super empty to super empty, 0 super stripes.
Yep.
And so I know that something that Brian from Altitude has said, and I think that this can, and this is just my personal experience. This is personal experience and logic. I'm not saying he's wrong, we're right. Not saying that. But what originally I was thinking was, okay, so if the theory is that it's been described by a handful of folks is that empty backs are super stripes that were selectively bred to push pattern out. So over generations, they kept the ones that were wider and wider, right? That is kind of how Brian has talked about it. So in my mind, logically, I thought to myself, okay, well, we know in any Crested Gecko pairing, there is quality differences. So imagine A grade, B grade, C grade, D grade within the hatchlings of a pairing, right?
Yep.
And, the A grade, maybe you get 2. B grade, maybe you get 1 or 2. C grade, you get like 4 or 5. D grade, you get like 1 or 2. So a lot of the hatchlings are kind of in that middle lower tier. And so if that was the case, these super empty backs would be producing majority high quality super stripes because they would be not as empty. They would be coming back together and we'd be seeing super stripes pop from those pairings. But we don't
You
see
should.
that.
But we don't. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So that was kind of my thought where if this is a selectively bred trait, the lower quality examples will be super stripes, which they proved not to be.
Yeah. That was the
kind of
exact same thing I did during the breedings and stuff.
Yeah.
And I found that the progression, exactly how you described, is the progression just doesn't follow truth to where if you breed these high quality animals, how did I magically, and they're hets, right? And how did I magically get back to one single crazy pure empty back, breed that over to another empty back, and then you don't get any super stripes. That's
0.
where I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, this doesn't track at all. Like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't be able to do this in one generation. You can't just wipe out pattern in a single generation like that progressively.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where even like, it took me multiple years of doing it, like probably like 5. And then I was like, God, this isn't working at all in the way it should. And then by the time we were just doing like, who was I talking to? Oh, Travis. I was talking to him about, can you explain epistasis to me? Because it was the only thing I could think of and how it works. And then I explained to him my theory on how that works and could this fit into that paradigm of the phenotype spread that we're seeing. And yes, that seems like a very plausible explanation. And then going back through all the breeding records and stuff to try to prove it is what took another several years. So I feel like if you really want to prove it, you, with the knowledge that we have now, you can take shortcuts, right? You can do it in like 3 to 4 years really easily, but you still have to breed the animals that you produce to find out whether for sure they're heterozygous or homozygous, which bare minimum takes 2 seasons, and you want enough results to be able to analyze that. You're looking at 3 to 4. So
yeah. So throw up that question again, Harry.
Let me pull it up here.
So basically the question was, are these 2 different morphs?
Are they different? Yeah.
Well, they're for sure different morphs because we can identify them both distinctly,
visually,
right?
But the way you have to think about it is, like, say for example, a cappuccino is one thing, a lily white is another thing, and a frappuccino is a third thing, right? So empty back is here, super stripe is here, but it does not stand alone,
right?
Unless it is with empty back,
right?
So super stripe is kind of useless if it's not paired with empty back. It doesn't really do anything,
right?
As far as as far as the outcrosses go, you breed it to animals where it doesn't get the empty back gene, and it's just like, did it get it? We don't know.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing is, can we use that gene in any other combination?
Something that's interesting, I think we should touch on this. So so part of me almost thinks, I know you've said it's recessive, right? You've said that super stripe is recessive, but super stripe, even in its heterozygous nature, is visual.
Yeah.
So how is that?
Yeah,
it does shape pattern, because I'll show you here in a little bit some het super stripe, het empty backs, and you'll see both at play.
No, I agree. Is it recessive or is it incomplete?
That's kind of my question.
It's a bit of it's hard to know for sure if you want to describe the het. Does it have a marker? And is empty back the bigger player in the phenotype, right? I don't know. Like, I almost want to say, if we breed it as a recessive, you still get your super stripes, right?
Yeah.
But then when empty back is not there, the phenotype doesn't express visually. So, right? So so how you have to describe genes when it comes, so this part gets a little bit technical, but see if you can track, okay?
Yeah.
So anytime you describe a gene as incomplete dominant or recessive, you cannot describe it how it works with the other gene that's there. Okay, as long as they're non-allelic. Okay,
Makes
so for
sense.
example, it
has to be as it stands alone.
Yeah, so you've got lily by itself, and you've got cappuccino.
Yeah.
Right? They're both incomplete dominant mutations.
Yeah.
Okay. But I cannot say that when you see a frappuccino, that the frappuccino by itself, you can't describe that as incomplete dominant by itself. Because whenever you describe genes, they have to be with the other gene that they're next to when it's in the heterozygous form. So that determines whether it's incomplete dominant, recessive, or dominant. And so super stripe by itself, right, without empty back, should not technically appear.
Yes.
Therefore,
Have you done that where that would be that'd be a really hard animal to ID because so many super stripes, you'd have to use a het super stripe, het empty back, breed it, pick ones that are not empty back, then take that animal back, breed it to an animal that is super empty het super stripe and see if you make the 4 gene animal.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem.
Have you done that?
How do you? Well, I don't know. You wouldn't be able to identify it because the super stripe doesn't appear when empty back is visually.
Yeah, I'm saying like it'd be like, have you proven it out of a quote invisible het, like a non-visual
we have bred those, and I've been looking for markers. Right, like what would be the marker to determine if super stripe is visually present, being that it's recessive, right? And so that's my biggest problem. We've done this as well for Phantom, right?
Yeah.
How do you prove whether Phantom itself is in the heterozygous form has any markers, right? Like you've bred lilies that don't really have any Phantom markers, but then you breed some that most people would guess, yeah, that's got to be a het Phantom because it's got this darkening here, or it's got this somewhat pattern on the dorsum, right? But it's hard to determine whether or not you see the marker or whether you think you see the marker.
I don't think there's a marker on Phantom.
For super stripe?
Could there be?
I feel like more often times than not.
There's a marker, but when empty back's there. But is there a marker when empty back's
in theory,
not
you
there?
should be able to separate them.
In theory, you should, yes, and you can. You just don't know because it's recessive, and if empty back's not there, then super stripe doesn't act on the phenotype. Then you may never know that it's there at all.
Yeah, you could do it. You could do it with breedings. You could do it with test breedings.
Where's this going?
Okay, sorry, I'm nerding out here.
We've had this discussion as well.
Do you have any other questions here before I want to look at some examples and stuff?
So many questions.
Oh, yeah, let's look at examples.
Do you have any questions, Harry?
No, I'm trying to track. I'm just understanding that for people that like are still new and understanding these things. So empty back and super stripe are separate things, but super stripe only shows up when you have empty back. And what you guys are trying to figure out is, can you find visual markers for super stripe if empty back isn't present?
Yes.
Right. And we don't,
also, I don't know if it really matters because they, yes, it would be cool to know, but if it is an epistasis, a combination of the two that only produces that visual super stripe animal, then super stripe, the gene doesn't really have much purpose unless there's some other gene that it would modify. Say if you did visual super stripe with lily white, but no empty back, does that do something? I don't know if we know.
I know Hannah's doing the super stripe xanthics.
Yeah.
And
I've seen a bunch of those in Korea too.
Those look
amazing.
Wicked. Yeah. And we've also seen the empty back lily version.
Yeah. They're less cool.
They're less cool, but still they're pretty impressive.
Yeah. They're
cool. And they still track with that phenotype separation.
I have this year at empty back lily whites that I'm gonna breed to a super empty. So I made hats last year from one male, and then now I'm using a different male, and I'm gonna try to prove them out. So they will prove out, but I'm interested to see if it's cool or not.
The EB lily you're talking about, AJ?
The super EB, homozygous EB lilies.
Okay.
Yeah, we got the hets as well, but fingers crossed we get something crazy cool this year too.
Yeah. So I guess this question kind of like will segue into kind of examples, but are there tail markers to identify het and super empty back? So
I think Anthony thinks so.
There's only one copy, right? If there's a het empty back, there's one copy you could kind of tell.
Yeah.
And Anthony, you mentioned it a little bit with the V on the neck, right? The little V mark, and then the whatever else, right? And so,
but specifically tail markers, I feel like there could be.
More often than not.
Yeah, more often than not, it seems to be a marker.
Yeah,
But I don't
and
want
AJ, you don't.
then we'll give them too many
But
advantages.
it might be one of those things though, like it might be one of those things like the V and cappuccinos, right? Like the V tail base.
Like it's common, but it's
True.
not
Like that
an
V
exact
Yeah,
thing.
it's like not
Gotcha.
all of them have it, but a lot of them do.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it could be. That's my hesitation.
Because
but
I know
what I
people will
find
say to
is
me,
the two little
hash
stripes
marks. Yeah.
on the middle
People-
of the tail.
A lot of people say
Cool.
that to me. They're like, "Oh, that's a Hetty B. It's got the hash marks on the tail." I'm like, these animals that like I've bred this pair for 5 years. They've never made an EB.
Yeah,
So it's not,
Gotcha.
but I'm glad you think it is.
yeah.
It could be.
Our original animals didn't have tails. AFI doesn't have a tail.
That's true. AFI never did have a
Pride
tail.
doesn't have a tail. We never saw their tails.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's a good point.
No, less.
can,
Pride has a tail. I don't know what his tail looks like.
let's pull up some examples, and then we can talk about any markers and.
I don't
things
know how many tails I show in my examples, but
well, we can see it from the dorsal, I guess.
okay.
Okay. So let's pull up
Show
some.
guys.
Pull up some. So these pictures are from AJ. He shared these with us, and I'm just resharing them on the screen here.
I took these today.
These are fresh from today.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk us through some of these things, AJ.
So this is
Give
an
us-
animal that
Yeah.
I got from Crestopia, Sam, who
Okay.
Harry now owns the male that produced this animal.
Mm.
So
You try to
what
pull it
I
out.
would define this animal as is it's hard to say. I think it is super empty het super stripe, if I was going to guess. Because the definition of the striping is not super strong. And also on the head, a lot of times we get this like darkened section of the head on super like real super stripes. So I think my prediction is this is a homozygous empty back heterozygous super stripe.
What is that? What is that darkening of the head that you're talking about for the super stripes?
If you pull up like Gecko Land on IG, we can see some.
Okay, hold on. You keep trying, but anyway. Oh shoot! I was trying to pull up the dad to this.
What do you think? What do you think about this one, Anthony?
Marker.
Yeah.
What do you think about this one?
It's either super stripe or het super stripe, but it does look very super stripy.
Ooh, sorry.
Maybe it's just not as filled in, but
yeah,
you know,
that's one of those things. And
super stripe.
I know that we've talked about this a little bit, but lines do get blurry, and we'll look at some animals here in a second. But between high quality het and low quality super,
Yeah, I'd agree.
So
I mean, I always tell everybody, like, no matter what, I just try to get people to breed it out.
Yeah,
instead of telling them exactly what it is. If you're in doubt, breed it out.
Oh, jeez.
All right, show me another one, Harry.
So hold on, I have a question.
That's what we had to do for everything.
So this boy that made it, like this one, you say this one's like this one is het super stripe that produced that.
Het.
I'd say it's double het. And I think the animal that it was bred to, when I saw the female it was bred to, the female was a het EB.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Let me pull this back up.
All right.
And then where did it go? Okay, next one.
What's next?
Is this the same animal?
No.
No, different. Okay. Talk about this one.
This is one of those where it's either a high quality het or a low quality super. I think it's a super.
I think it's a super because of the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But dark based or lavender. Super cool though.
See, it's got the two little stripes.
This one does have the hash marks.
Mm-hmm. You see the little tail markers that I'm talking about?
Yeah, this one does have those.
Yeah. Not all of them do. It's weird that they have those lines, and then some of them just have a split tail as well.
Yeah.
Down the
Cats
middle.
have those lines too?
No. They have different lines, but they do have lines that could resemble that.
Oh,
but
they're like this on the side.
they're really black. Yeah, kind of like a phantom. And it's just like a regular cat, but has tail markers as well.
All right, give us next, Harry. Let's see. All right.
Ooh.
Here's another one. Interesting animal. Super, super dark when it fires. This is relatively unfired. I would say again, I believe this is a super.
Super empty.
It's
I
pretty
think
wiped out. All the
it's-
patterning.
it's not-
And look at the look at the laterals where the legs and arms
Yeah.
are.
Almost
Like I
no
would
pattern.
usually expect more patterning to be there. Personally.
Yeah.
Same animal.
Same animal.
Mhm.
Yep.
That
Also
has
hash
the two little
marks
stripes
on the tails. Yeah.
Oh, these two right here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it has 2 more further down the tail.
Okay.
All right.
Have you noticed their tail on the bottom of it from the if you were to like split the tail in half is really defined as well?
Yeah.
I like
This
these.
this animal's
thing's
cool.
killer.
This one doesn't have the tail hash marks, does it?
It might. They might just be kind of
Lower.
masked
Looks
by
like
the tail pattern.
I mean,
Okay.
right there where your mouse is could be, but what if the patterning extended
Yeah,
up and
that's
if
what
the
I'm
patterning
saying.
didn't
Right
wipe
here.
it
I
out,
see.
right?
I
It
see.
kind of looks like it.
So
Yeah.
would you say same thing on this animal? Probable super.
I would say this is probably a super. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool animal.
From my breedings, I produce supers like this as well.
I think the next photo is another photo of it. Yeah.
Ooh, so dark.
Super dark. This animal's like
Yeah.
I like
jet
the head
black.
on it.
All the patterning is
that.
gone from his
Look at
legs.
that head. Yeah.
Mhm.
It almost looks like a mask.
All right.
This
This
one
is an
I'd probably
interesting
say.
animal.
Is it a super stripe? Head.
So this animal comes out of the Calvin Klein kind of stuff, which produces super stripes. So I'm not saying this one is het super stripe, but it's possible.
Like
So-
a super EB het super stripe kind of thing that brings it back in kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not even I don't know. I don't know if I would define this one. This is a fine line where this is either a low quality super or a high quality hat.
Well, for me, is also like that little V in the shape of the neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Right in there.
It seems to start connecting there first
Mhm.
as you pull empty back the gene out of the animal.
Yeah. This is a cool
So-
animal though.
Is this V present in all empty backs?
Not all. No.
And
Mm.
a
In
lot of
several
hats,
hets.
like super stripe hats too.
Okay.
We'll see some more hats here in a bit.
Yeah,
This is the
same
same
one.
animal.
It doesn't have the hash marks on the tail.
Doesn't, yeah.
It does not.
That's
No.
what I know.
This one's a super
This
stripe.
is a super stripe, and I have
Mhm.
offspring from this. This is from Greeks.
Hmm.
And I have some
Yeah, that
offspring
looks like
from
a
this
super
to
stripe.
show.
And it's such a fine line too down the middle.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Have you noticed that when that V shape kind of goes away in the super stripes, it's significantly straighter. It doesn't like curve in.
I'm not convinced this is a super empty super stripe. Just from the amount of definition in it. But
So
it may be. It could be 1 copy empty back, 2 copy super stripe. is what I'm saying.
that's the hard part to prove out too, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
But we'll see hatchlings here in a minute. Did you start at the beginning, Harry?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a yellow-based super empty back, which I proved out of. So one of my super empty males bred to a female Prism, who I assumed was a het, and I produced this animal,
Gotcha.
which is cool. Okay, so this is out of the super stripe male.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So the super stripe male produced these animals that I believe are. So he most likely is actually, now that I'm thinking about it, he most likely is homozygous empty back and homozygous super stripe, because almost
So
all the
double het.
animals appear to be single hets, single of both.
Yep.
So here's one.
It's interesting how thick the pinning gets when you have double heads, especially in the yellows.
Also, like how it thins at the base of the tail, that thickness.
Yeah, it's really
For me,
interesting for the
I've
super
seen-
stripe, right?
Yeah. So I've used this and made empty backs and super stripes before, like this look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where
But
normally back in
you
the
can
day
see
we
the
wouldn't have
definition and
assumed it
pattern though.
to have any gene at all.
Yeah.
We'd have just called this a pinstripe.
Mm.
Yep. But now we know, looking at this, how that's actually interacting. When you can see the definition of the stripe, but it is weak, you know?
Yeah, also, if you look at, like, normally I would expect an animal with this much white patterning on the dorsum to have more patterning on the laterals and the legs, where when you're breeding the hets out, you'll notice that they have reduced patterning on the legs and the arms, like the anti-Harlequin.
Yeah. All right, next, Harry. Let's see what we got.
Same one.
Same animal, different angle. All right. This is a sibling to the last one.
Interesting.
But same thing. You can see that definition.
Double het, in my opinion.
Double het. Yeah, double het.
Even look at the tail markers. It has the two little stripes as well.
Yeah. Yep. I'd say it's double het as well. All right. What's next? Okay. Dark version, double het.
Still
Also,
agreeing with that.
Lavender. These are siblings.
Oh, they are? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's the same animal as before.
Same one.
Same animal, different angle. Double het. Okay. Different animal completely.
Yep.
Super to super. But animals that produced 0 super stripes. Only super empty backs out of this pair.
I would say that would produce empty back stuff.
I got no super stripes out of
this. produced a super stripe?
No.
No super
He's
stripe.
produced no
Sorry,
super stripes.
Got it. Okay.
He's only produced super empties.
The cream on the pinning is thinner for me. It doesn't have the V at the base of the neck.
It's got really good lateral white patterning that's really thick. So I have this idea of white wall and white out that it starts from the center of the dorsum and expands outward, up and down. And so one weird thing I've noticed is that when the gene is strong in the laterals and it's got real hard white patterning, you'll notice that little section with the heady bees in the middle will try to connect.
Interesting.
It's always like little, like little octopus tentacles reaching out to connect to each other. It's weird.
All right, here's a different pairing. This is one of the super stripes that I produced.
Yeah.
Super stripe, cool. Super EB.
So homozygous both.
Say again?
I don't know if I have a lateral shot of it. It's just broken. It's not full.
It's broken. Got it.
Oh, here you go. It's a little better.
Oh, cool.
It's a little folded up. Broken striping.
Yep.
But this is an animal where I knew both parents were super empties, but they came from lines that super stripes were present in, but they were not visually super stripes themselves.
Gotcha. So started producing the super stripe suddenly, where you wouldn't expect it.
About 25% odds.
Yeah.
Which tracks.
And this is this is the only pair that made them.
Now the thing that I found as well is when you breed supers like that are potentially het, you don't get like Hannah level of super stripes where the line is like, finally
that's
drawn.
When they've been stacked pretty well. Yeah.
So good point. That's where stacking kind of comes in multiple generations of refinement.
Yeah.
You can make a normal Harlequin, but you can also make those extreme covered ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next. Let's see what we got.
Next one.
And a super EB in shed.
No super stripe.
No.
It's got that little V shape on that one too.
Right here?
Mm-hmm.
I can't even tell. Like, I don't even know what you guys are looking at when
the pattern kind of terminates right at the shoulders.
Okay.
Kind of into a V. Yeah.
Rounds out or V's out.
Oh, that's the same photo. Okay.
Super EB.
Super EB. This is from the same pair as that female that we looked at a little bit earlier that has the nice highlighted white pinning. But
you can almost see the spine too.
Out of this.
You see that black line down the spine?
Yeah.
What is that?
I like the head on it.
It's just how it interacts.
But super long crests on that one too. All right, here's my favorite.
Ooh.
So fuzzy.
It's got a
Is it
stripe
super
down the
stripe?
middle.
This is the ultra stripe. I'm coining it.
Oh my god, the ultra.
There's the stripe on the tail.
This is the
too.
reverse super stripe.
No,
Uh,
don't
uh.
stop it. Stop making up stuff. You're gonna confuse more people.
But
Everyone
tell-
makes stuff up.
Explain this though, Anthony. How did I make a gecko that is a super empty that has
Can I
a
see the
line?
laterals?
Show the next picture, maybe.
Does it got good like white walling kind of patterning?
It's got like portholes.
Okay.
Not too much. But I've never seen this before.
It's just
What
the
is
way
it?
the patterning came together. I mean, for me, if I were to attribute it to
Is it
what
just
the
dumb
gene was
luck?
that was causing it, I'd say it's probably the lateral white walls. Because
Yeah.
this animal has really nice fringing on the back legs,
Yeah.
and then it's got really nice laterals as well.
This has a
Of
strong
walls.
example, Harry, of the V at the neck.
Yeah, I see it now. It's
It's
very
very
prominent, very
obvious.
easy to see. Yeah.
And that looking tail.
I guess if you breed this out, then and you
Markers.
try to breed super stripes, you can see if it's het for it or something.
It shouldn't be. There was no super
Shouldn't
stripes
be.
that came from this pair.
Gotcha.
I would do it just to see.
I'll
Make
try.
sure.
I need more super
Super
stripes. All right. What's next? Okay.
We all
So
need more super
here are some adults. So this animal has proven to be het empty back, not het for super stripe.
Gotcha. All right.
For
Cool.
reference. This animal has proven to be homozygous, empty back, not het for super stripe.
Okay.
It's just a super EB.
This animal, I assumed, was het empty back and has proven to not be a carrier at all.
Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense to a degree.
But
it
what
does have similar characteristics, though.
it has markings though. Like if we look at like the back legs all the way to the tail base, it's empty there.
Yep.
It's
They're
got
pretty dark.
kind of a defined V up towards the neck, towards the collar. It's got a decent amount of missing pattern in the dorsal.
Yeah.
So I ID'd this animal and I was like, oh, I'm gonna put this to a super. And I made zero supers out of like 12 hatchlings. Which
Does it have
could
any
just
tail
be
markers?
Just a line.
I don't think I have two photos of
Do you have a second picture?
I don't know if I
Let's
do.
see.
I don't think I do.
No.
Ooh.
This animal has proven to be super EB, not super stripe at all.
Yeah.
But
Also
it looks
doesn't
like it
have the
could, huh?
tail markers.
I
Yeah.
think just the
Interesting.
thinness of it, like when it's going to be super stripe, even if like you predict it, it's usually a little bit thicker.
And it's, I don't know, super stripe really does a good job of defining lines, right?
Yeah.
Like
It really does.
It defines pattern where empty back is almost like it's like eating away at it like a little hole at a time. And then super stripe is actually like physically shaping the pattern in the back.
Yeah. Like, I describe it as, I think I could describe it as bolstered pinstripe, thick
It's interesting.
bolstered lines. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what else we got. And then this is the animal that proved to be het super stripe.
I thought for a second you were going to say proved not to be anything. I was like, that's not possible.
But this one,
But
you wouldn't
this
be able
is
to
the
tell,
animal.
though. How
That's
would
cool.
But if you look at the pattern, look where so this animal is het super stripe. It's not
Okay.
it's not
It is het super stripe?
it is.
Really?
This is the animal that produced this is the only animal that produced super stripes.
Super stripes. Okay. So,
Interesting.
but you didn't know until you proved it out.
Yes.
It's interesting how extra eaten away that pattern is.
Yeah.
You know what
But
I mean?
there is
go back to
a
the
little
last
bit
one?
of definition. If you go from the neck all the way to like the midpoint of the body, you can see some definition.
Mhm.
And then you lose it.
You know what's funny is it still fades away towards the base of the tail like usual too.
Yeah.
If you were to like draw the line, you could almost outline it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
an
get you.
interesting animal.
It is an interesting
Also,
animal.
doesn't
I'd
look
agree.
like it has tail markings.
Mm.
I don't know. They could be
It
eaten
doesn't,
away.
because a
It
lot
could
of
be
these
right there
have
hidden.
they have the hash marks around there, and then they would have hash marks lower, like 3/4 of the way.
Oh,
I
I
don't know.
never noticed the 3/4 of the way.
Okay, next one.
Okay, go.
This
Ooh,
is
I like
this
that
is a homozygous empty back, not super stripe.
Mm.
So this is a father of a lot of the super EBs you saw.
Is it? Okay, gotcha.
That's your last one.
Okay.
And a
All right.
pronounced head stamp.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
Very cool.
So there's
That
some
was helpful.
examples.
I think that was very helpful.
Just to give you guys kind of like, I guess, an eye into what animals ended up producing what and what proved out to be what through the breedings. Because like I said earlier, I'm all about like taking what is told to me and then trying to, do my own research as well. So
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
and I know
I'd agree
I know
with
you're
that.
all about that, Anthony. You encourage everybody to do their own research too. So
Yeah,
Can I
don't
pull up
just
some-
believe me.
Can I pull up some? Don't believe Anthony.
Prove me right. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Can I pull up some examples from our Discord? Some
Yeah.
people that
I'd love to see
they send up some
examples from the
pictures.
Discord.
Okay, so
Love your guys' Discord. I wish I could be more active on it. I'm
us
so
too,
busy with
actually.
work.
me too.
Yeah, we've gotten busy. We got busy, but we'll be back in. Don't worry. Okay, let me try to share this screen. Entire screen? No window. Okay, here it goes. Give me 1 second. Close these out. Okay. Oh, what? It says screen has lost permission to capture your screen. What's going on here? Okay, keep chatting while I try to figure this out.
Okay.
No worries.
Let me pull up this while I'm trying to figure this out. Here's
I don't know.
I'm gonna pull up some Greeks and I'll pull up some Gecko land.
Cool.
Let's see what else do we got here.
Majority of what you see over at Hannah's are super stripes.
Yeah,
Yes.
hands down.
Yeah, she's kind of got it.
But
dialed down.
click that one down, the 2 in the picture, that one right there. I feel like
Ooh,
this is
that
a
is
good
so cool.
example of the head stamps. You start to
Look at
see
that head
these.
stamp. It's so wickedly cool.
So
You get
perfect.
these really interesting head stamps. And when we go over and look at Gecko Land, you'll see those as well.
Look at the nose.
Gecko
Do you
land
see the
get it
nose?
from Hannah?
How it has that also like an additional V shape.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really interesting that
Yeah, they look
that
like
pattern keeps
mosaic. They're
popping up
so
with
cool.
these animals.
Yeah, so interesting.
What does Yule's face look like? We got Yule from Hannah.
I don't know.
Okay, hold on. Keep chatting. Let me try to pull up some of these things. Yeah, AJ, so you were saying, as I'm pulling this up, you were saying, I thought for me to visually look at empty backs, I thought it was easier than sometimes looking at phantoms, but then you feel like a lot of times people mistake empty backs more than phantoms.
I feel
What
like
are your thoughts on
people
that?
think they understand empty backs. People think they can ID het empty backs.
Yeah.
Really confidently. And I think it's harder than people think it is.
Why?
Because I've had animals that look more het than others that prove not to be.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people will end up breeding some of those animals and not producing anything. So I think that, you said something to me. You said, I think people are better at IDing empty backs than they are at IDing phantoms.
Yes.
And I'm like, to me, that seems so crazy. Like phantom to me is so obvious.
Bro,
And empty back, even still to me, like if I walked up to like Anthony's table and I'm looking at it, or Harry's table, anybody, like I'm not 100% sure if something is a heterozygous empty back.
Okay. Yeah.
unless I see a pairing or whatever. But like if I walk up and I see a visual phantom, I'm 100% sure
Yeah,
what it is.
I gotcha. Maybe
But
you're just so well versed in phantoms because you've been working with it for so long. But empty backs,
Yeah, you get to see every iteration of it in
that is
between and
true.
how it works.
They
Yeah.
plagued my collection for pretty much my entire career. So
Now you're putting them all back in, though.
I know. Now I love them, but for a long time they were like a curse. I literally, like when I'd hatch them, I'd be like, ah.
That's
Because
true.
I was just like, why do I keep hatching these stupid things?
I wasn't aiming for dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
man, I'm
So-
in trouble.
For
on
the
this.
super stripes, every animal that I was like, I'm pretty sure that's going to prove out to be a het has proved out though.
Yeah,
Every time I told you,
you've
I
gotten me
think-
on that for
I
sure.
think that one's going to make super stripes, and all of them have.
Mhm.
Here, go down a little bit here.
There has to be something.
Let's see.
But see,
Are
like
these
this
from-
animal, look at this animal on the left.
This one here.
That one there.
Mm.
I'd say that's not a super stripe.
No, but it is
Just-
an empty back, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Fresh.
These are also just empty
Super,
backs.
those are super stripes.
Super stripes.
That
is
one
it
looks
because-
like it because of like if you look towards the end of the base of the tail, you see how it tapers in quite a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I know for a fact this animal was produced by Altitude, sold to Flawless, and Flawless,
Fuck,
sorry,
they bought it
the
from Flawless.
parents were sold to Flawless. Flawless produced that and sold it to Korea. And then these are the offspring of that gecko.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Look at all the tail striping. Isn't
straight.
that wicked cool? It's also something that we find
But they
like
don't have the hash marks. The super stripes.
they don't, but it's
Uh,
something very common when you have like het super stripe,
Yeah, where they get a dark
homozygous
line.
EB kind of stuff, right? Like they do have a tail marker. It's just
Man,
not
those things
always
are straight up clones.
yeah.
That is insane.
Oh,
Mm.
before we even started with empty backs and super stripe,
Hmm.
we had a phantom super stripe,
Oh yeah.
and we
That's
had
kinda
no
funny.
idea. And then we were looking
can't tell.
at empty backs and super stripe stuff, and I was like, wait a minute.
Once it started to click,
What the heck?
that's
Look
true.
at these
Actually, okay.
animals.
I
Because a
give
bunch
credit
of
to
these
Jessica for that one. So
A bunch of
she
these are
did say if this EB, Het EB, Super Stripe, Het Super
Yeah.
Stripe thing is tracking, then this Phantom, which one was it?
Wrath.
Wrath should be Het and should produce visuals,
Hmm.
right? And so we bred them, and sure enough,
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
some pretty wicked ones, and with the tail stripe down the middle as
Yep.
well.
This is probably some of the stuff they're getting from outcrosses, if I'm gonna guess. Breeding
That looks like it.
those animals outcrossed.
Yeah, with all the pattern on the inside too.
And the Het looking markers and all that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is this little blotch right here a marker for super stripe on the tail?
You know
I mean,
how
all,
you have
all
those,
three of them
those-
have it.
You know how they have those two lines. Sometimes
Yeah.
they're like really close to each other and like connects.
I would say more like the darkness of the tip of the tail and how it's like kind of dashed in a
Split.
line,
Split in a
more
line.
of a
yeah.
line.
Mhm.
That's what I noticed more.
Yeah, very cool.
But interesting for sure.
Yeah, they gotta all be tail markers of like. I mean, for most genes that I find, there's a tail marker or indicator of some type, right?
Okay.
Like you see it in phantoms, you see it in cappuccinos, you see it in lilies, you see it in EBs, you see it in soft scales, and then they change when you do supers as well. Yeah, hypos.
I hope this has been helpful and not more confusing.
And I mean, people. Harry told me that after the Phantom episode, he was more
I was, like, more
confused.
confused.
Oh no.
You know what? It was helpful. I at the same time I gained a lot more like knowledge in identifying phantoms. But there are also I was given a lot of examples by Brian and AJ where I just couldn't tell. I'm like I don't know. Like it made me more confused, and I realized that a lot of people, myself included, just misidentify phantoms like all the time. Right?
Yeah, I think a lot of the misconfusion will come from like the yellow base ones and the tangerine ones, orange colored stuff, where the patterning
Almost
kind of
all
starts to
the-
come through.
Almost all the ones
hard
that
to
I get
tell.
sent that are mis-ID'd are yellows.
Yellows, yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
tough.
that's my number one as well. I mean, all the ones I have trouble with here in my R collection when we breed them are yellows as well.
Yeah.
So
Spotted Lily is talking about quad stripes, white pinstriping. Any thoughts on these things?
Difference between empty back,
You guys know
quad
what she's
stripe,
talking about?
and phantom white pinstriping.
And phantom white pinstriping.
So, empty back is a standalone gene. Quad stripe is
a lateral characteristic.
Is a lateral characteristic that often comes with stacked pinstripe.
So do we see a lot of
is phantom white pinstriping? What do they mean by that?
Yeah,
probably just talking about phantoms that have white pinning. I don't know how that relates.
Yeah. Are there empty back Harleys? Because all I see are quad stripe empty backs.
You can make them.
Especially when you breed them and you're breeding hets and you get normals that have no empty back and no het, no nothing at all. They're just normals. You're gonna see a bloom of Harlequin patterning on them suddenly, and you're gonna be like, oh, that's not het for anything.
Yeah.
But within that question, you can make an interaction of all of them.
You can. People just aren't doing it.
Yeah. So you can do it, and I think that's what gets confusing. Is they're all different, but you can make it all in one.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, what's the next question? I want to see more.
Because you can make super empty super stripes that are phantoms too.
Yeah. No question from Kevin. Just one badass gecko.
The photo that was posted.
Gecko Diva. But let's talk about lily white empty backs. AJ talked a little bit about that. Do you guys have a lot of those things going on in your collections?
I've got a bit. I've got like probably
a bunch of heads.
Yeah, we have a handful.
Yeah.
I got 4 females.
I remember when last time we talked, AJ, it was like several episodes ago last year. Then we started talking about empty backs and lily whites, and then we realized not a lot of people had them yet. I think it was with Tiki, right? Maybe Tiki had one or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm sure there are a lot more that's populated.
Yeah. I had hatchlings, and I think Tiki had hatchlings, and it was just kind of a who's gonna have them ready, who's gonna see it first, And I think Hannah beat us to it, but she's doing super stripes, not just empty backs.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
But they're wicked looking animals. They're cool.
They're awesome.
It's really interesting that it's at least strong enough to split the lily when we know lily patterning on the dorsum is pretty dang strong as a gene.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't have too many more questions. I kind of like threw them up as you guys were talking about it, and I think you answered most of them.
Our time is almost up anyway.
I know. We're about to go. Man, I wish I could pull up the Discord, but for some reason, like my computer like reset or something and isn't letting me.
Well, we can go in and like type responses in the Discord after.
Yeah. So to the Discord people, I'm sorry.
We will come in and commentate.
We'll jump in. Yeah. But
Any other questions, Harry?
Not that I've gotten or written down. I pulled everything as soon as we started recording, so this is all we have for now. But
I feel like as far as genes that currently exist, this is probably the most complicated currently. As far as describing, because what other genes have that epistasis component? That is, it's a little bit different to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it is.
So I could understand how people could be confused or just not believe it. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of people that say we're wrong, which is fine. I don't think we don't have a disclaimer at the front of this podcast saying that we know everything.
Yeah, no, for sure not.
We're all just talking about it. We're trying to learn. That's all.
Yeah. We're trying to learn.
Our
We're trying to do our own research, our own experiments, keep our own records and just share what we're finding. So,
yeah, that's a lot of everything that we talk about is just personal experimentation and our results from it.
Yeah, don't freak out if you disagree with us, right? Don't.
Yeah, seriously. I don't care. It's okay to disagree.
Yeah,
you know, disagree. That's fine.
Try not to block.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not afraid of disagreements. It's fine.
I think what got hard was trying to separate them because at first we were just making empty backs and super stripes together.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, hey, this works. You can use this animal and then make both empty backs and super stripes. So we never really cared to just make one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when
Until
you breed the
recently.
normal ones, I've never been able to get another interaction like you see with super stripe and empty back.
What do you mean when you breed normal ones? What do you mean by
So
normal?
when you breed the ones that come out that are not het EB and not het super stripe and don't have any
Oh, yeah.
visual
And then you breed those,
characteristics,
then there's nothing comes from it.
I haven't been able to find any. So, you know,
Yeah.
you breed it to a Harley, you breed it to, you know, whatever. You breed it to a Phantom and stuff like that. And I haven't been able to find, like, the gene won't just suddenly reoccur.
Yeah.
You know, we still have them in our collection now because, you know, some of them that come out are like really cool yellows that you don't want to discard because they're not het EB or het super stripe and they don't carry that gene, right? But they're still really beautiful animals and you still breed them. And I haven't seen the gene pop up ever again from those pairings, you know? So
Interesting.
and I've never seen any like marker or indication that like something unique is happening. If it was like het super stripe, for example, and EB was totally pulled out.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Show you my super stripe. No,
That
sorry,
was
You're
super,
super
beautiful.
empty.
sorry, super
Look
empty.
at those two little connecting. See what I'm saying?
Little hashes.
They keep doing that, which is interesting too. We have so many that do that.
Super empty,
cool.
super soft.
Wicked cool animal.
Cool.
But it's cool
animal.
because like a lot of genes are starting to obviously show like head stamps as well. Like you'll see them in cappuccinos and empty backs and
EBs have head stamps that are very unique for sure.
yeah, they're very cool. Yeah. And I like the interaction with the super stripe because it's not empty in the head anymore. You get this weird like patterning and V shapes and all sorts of cool stuff happening.
Especially in Hannah's, all her photos, the weird
Yeah. Some of hers are wicked cool.
head patterns. Super cool.
So where do you guys see, kind of starting to wrap this up, where do you guys see empty back and super stripe going in the next few years? Do you think it has a bright
getting
future?
a lot cleaner. Like getting, and then we've asked this question before about what base color people really like them, and right now a lot of them like them in the dark base.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more uptake of the yellows. I think they're pretty neat, to be totally frank. The red ones don't look that good.
Yeah.
The red coloration gets really like brown and muted and brick colored. Just because of what the EB is doing to the laterals.
And then the pinstripe tends to be orangey.
Yeah, so you lose some of the niceness of it when you're doing versus like black and whites, obviously.
The contrast on them,
Yeah, there you go, the contrast. Yeah,
cool head stamp again from Santa.
Ooh la la. Santa's been making such great ones lately. His posts, I'm like,
yeah, he's making some awesome stuff recently.
He made an Xanthic empty back. What is this?
Super stripe.
That looks like an Xanthic one right there. Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Now there's Xanthic ones too.
Well, they've been making Xanthic super stripe, the lily ones. Those are so nice.
Oh yeah.
Like Rudy Cresties with her skunk.
Oh my, the
perfect
beautiful.
Name, perfect gecko.
Yeah.
So cute.
Yeah, when I saw that thing, I was like,
that thing's awesome.
This gecko's beautiful.
Because we saw it in
person.
Yeah, it's an Xanthic.
Wow.
That thing's so cool.
Yeah.
The contrast is just.
Oh, look at the head.
Yeah.
It's trippy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So the future is just contrast and super clean.
Yeah, I agree.
Super clean, super empty bags.
Yeah.
I mean,
super empty, super striped.
Do we have a lot of cappuccino empty backs? Have we seen?
Well, an interesting interaction is that fraps and caps can often appear empty back even when they're not.
Oh, okay.
I've seen that.
Like you'll see fraps where they appear to be empty backs, but they're not. It's just the interaction between cappuccino and lily kind of fighting in the dorsal because cappuccino is increasing melanin and lily white is increasing cream, and so they kind of push each other, and you get this like quasi empty back look. Like if you went on Fetal and looked at Frappuccinos, you'd be like, man, half of these things are empty backs, but they're not.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if they actually were, though.
Yeah, it'd be hard to tell once you throw actual empty backs into there.
Who knows? It might actually do quite a bit. It could be pretty cool.
Let's get to it.
Jump in. So did we learn more today? Everyone not confused? Everyone's good to go. I feel a little bit less confused.
What questions do you have, Harry? Because you are kind of like the barometer on the masses.
Yeah.
I want to see more of these.
Phantom for sure. I was more confused, but this one I feel a little bit less confused. But just kind of going through examples. Let me pull up Anthony. Hold on.
This one.
I want to see more of these guys. I think they're really interesting.
Yellowy super stripes.
Yeah, because the super stripe interaction versus the empty back interaction is totally different. And I think the more people start breeding them, and especially if you find these, they'll be pretty wicked because you'll get a lot of color back into the laterals where you're missing color in the black base versions.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, especially on the yellows because empty back, something we didn't talk about is that in empty back animals, the color and the back is the base color of the animal.
We'll say that again, AJ.
In homozygous empty back animals, the negative space, so the once the pattern is removed, the color that is in the back is the base color of the animal. But
like dark, okay.
Yeah, like say it's a dark gecko, it's going to be dark on the back. The pinstriping scales can still be white or whatever, but the back pattern is going to be dark. But in super stripe animals, you can have a yellow gecko where it's a super stripe.
Yeah.
And it can have a brown or black line that runs down the back. So like that is a difference also between super stripe and empty back, is that super stripe has more of a fixed color to the pattern where empty back assumes the color of the base color of the animal.
Okay. I think I just got to see a lot more examples because a lot of times we see a lot of dark base, but we don't see a lot of yellow empty backs or red empty backs, right?
We have red.
Kind of like this one where it's not as dark.
But it looks more like chocolate.
But you saw that first one, and pull up that first one that was in my example, Harry.
Okay, give me a second. Hair crying.
This one's so good.
Oops, sorry. Not this one.
I love that animal.
Let me pull this up here. Here it goes. This one?
Yeah. So the actual base color of the gecko is that like lighter yellow.
Okay.
Not the like reverse, not the darker pattern that's over the top.
So that hence the super stripe look.
Yeah. So that darker stripe on the animal.
Was this the animal that gave you that piece of information?
And there's an animal that Greeks has like a couple years back on her IG that's yellow. She's only produced like 2 of them, but she's really the only one that I've seen produce like clean super stripes that are yellow.
What about the empty back ones that you've seen?
Pinball.
The empty back ones that I've seen yours. I've produced a couple.
Gotcha.
Do you have a rebuttal on that?
No, that's exactly what I find.
Okay, cool.
I just try not to preach it too much because I want to see more feedback personally from people being like, hey.
So I'm glad that I had the same feedback.
Heck yeah, I have. I can't believe you did. I love when I hear people give me feedback.
Something that's interesting over on AC's website. I see even though he originally coined super stripes, right? I see almost no super stripes on his website.
That's funny.
Like almost everything is empty back.
Yeah. I saw. I
Like
saw.
you see
he
the
had a
occasion,
red.
like those two. Those two,
Yeah.
I would say are.
Yeah,
Go
This
up.
one's right here.
Go up.
This one.
I don't know where you were. Go down 2.
I lost my place as well.
Yeah, right there.
2 more. These 2, the
Oh, yeah,
tailless
these
one
two.
and that
Yeah.
one.
Right here.
I would say those are
stripe.
het super stripe for sure.
It does say super stripe on it,
It does.
at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, super stripe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Super
soft.
soft plus super stripe. Het
White
empty bag.
walls.
Wow, that is so
I
I
confusing.
wonder what super soft is actually like soft skills actually doing to that as well, other than like the appearance of the coloration that's modified.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting, like the head stamp on that particular animal as well.
Yeah. I feel like his typical, but like this animal right here, go up a little bit, that $1,800 one.
Hold on, I lost my place. Oh, here. This one.
Oh, no.
Mhm.
Go back down further. Sorry. Further,
Right
further. No, go further. Keep going. That one. Okay, he does not label that. That's interesting. This $2,200 tailless animal, he does not label that animal super stripe.
Empty back.
He does label
He
it.
labels it super
Yeah.
empty back. Oh, he
Yeah.
actually labels it super empty back as well too.
Yeah.
So he started using the super form as well.
Yeah, interesting.
That's awesome.
That's cool. It's a cool animal.
He didn't use that before.
I've never really seen him post empty back, so I wouldn't know. He started doing that recently with all his projects working out really well.
Well, like I said, when we used to all talk about it, it was either empty back or not.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
weren't
I just
saying-
always
yeah.
referred to
If it was,
empty back as a super form, and if it was the het form, I'd say
Yes.
het empty
Yeah.
back. So
Yeah.
Cool.
There's
cool.
a lot to continue to learn and
There's a lot.
cool animals that we need to make. So
Yeah.
yeah,
A lot
we
to
have
prove
some
out.
great ideas.
I look forward. If anybody, feel free to send us DMs on Instagram, go over to the Discord, send us
Or in
pictures of
the comments
animals.
below.
Yeah, or comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Love to see your examples of animals and talk about them.
Yeah.
Do you guys
Join
have
us
any?
on
Do
Discord.
you guys have any closing remarks? I know I got to go to bed. Harry's got to eat dinner. You
I
guys
gotta eat.
probably got to eat dinner.
I got
check out all our Instagrams because we all have examples of them. And if you have questions, literally, like just press the button, the thing, comment,
us.
or send us a DM about that
Yeah.
animal, and then we can discuss it there.
We love chatting. We love chatting about these things, so it's always fun.
Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
having us again.
Again,
Thank
yeah,
you
we'll have you
guys.
guys again in a little bit. We'll talk about some other things, and it'll be
Absolutely.
exciting, and we'll learn
Thanks,
some
guys.
more and be confused at the same time. So
Confuse people soon.
awesome.
Bye, guys.
Thank you guys.
You guys.
You guys.